My daughter stood in my kitchen with her suitcase by the door and said, "We're leaving tomorrow, Mom. I sold your house." She smiled like it was already done. What she didn't know was the one thing she forgot would change everything. They say the deepest betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who know your weaknesses, your history, and your heart. I never imagined that the child I raised alone, protected with everything I had, would one day look at me and see property instead of a mother. I was washing dishes when my daughter Nicole walked into the kitchen like she owned the air in the room. Her heels clicked against the floor with confidence, the kind of confidence people get when they believe the decision is already made. She didn't sit down. She didn't ask how my day was. She just crossed her arms and said it. "We're leaving tomorrow, Mom. I sold your house." The words hit me harder than any slap ever could. The water was still running, but everything else went quiet. I turned slowly, my hands wet, my heart beating so loud I thought she could hear it. "You did what?" I asked. Nicole sighed like I was the inconvenience. "I sold the house. You're getting old. This place is too big for you. You'll come live with us. It's better this way." This house wasn't just wood and walls. It was my life. I bought it 32 years ago after my husband died, when I was left with a 3-year-old and a mountain of fear. I worked double shifts at the hospital. I skipped meals so Nicole could eat. Every brick in that house was paid for with sacrifice. And now my daughter had decided it was hers to sell. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just asked one question. "Who told you you could sell it?" She looked surprised, almost amused. "Mom, everything's already handled. The paperwork is done. We close tomorrow." I nodded slowly. Inside, something hardened. Because Nicole had made one very big mistake. She never owned that house. And I still held the deed. Nicole had always been ambitious. From the time she was young, she wanted more than what we had. I didn't blame her. I encouraged her. I told her to dream big, go to college, build a life better than mine. But somewhere along the way, ambition turned into entitlement. After she married Marcus, things changed. He was charming on the surface, always smiling, always talking about business ideas that never quite worked. They struggled financially, and slowly, the phone calls started coming more often. "Mom, can you help us this month?" "Mom, we're a little short on rent." "Mom, it's just a loan." I helped when I could. Because that's what mothers do. But I noticed something else too. Nicole stopped asking. She started assuming. She began making comments about the house. "This place is worth a lot now. You should sell and downsize. What are you even doing with all this space?" I didn't think much of it at first. Until the day I overheard her on the phone saying, "Once we sell Mom's house, everything will be fine." That was the first crack. I confronted her gently. She laughed it off. "Mom, relax. I was just talking." But she wasn't just talking. What Nicole never understood was that I learned hard lessons early in life. After my husband died, people came out of nowhere trying to take advantage of me. Fake advisors, family members, even church friends. That's when an older black woman from my neighborhood pulled me aside and said something I never forgot. "Baby, love your children. But protect yourself." When I paid off the house, I put the deed in a trust under my name alone. No joint ownership. No assumptions. I told Nicole this years ago, but she never listened. She heard what she wanted to hear. The night she told me she sold my house, I said nothing more. I just nodded and went to my room. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was scared, but because I was disappointed. I kept thinking about all the nights I sat by her bed when she was sick. All the prayers I whispered over her future. And how easily she dismissed my existence. The next morning, Nicole came downstairs dressed sharp, coffee in hand. "Ready?" she asked. "For what?" I said calmly. The closing. The buyers are waiting. I picked up my purse. Let's go. Her confidence grew during the drive. She talked about how this would be good for everyone. How I'd be happier not worrying about bills. How I could finally rest. She never asked what I wanted. At the title office, the air was cold and quiet. The buyers sat smiling. The agent greeted Nicole warmly. Good morning. We're just waiting on the seller to sign. Nicole pointed at me. That's her. The agent looked at me. Ma'am, may I see your ID? I handed it over. He compared it to the documents, then frowned. There seems to be a problem. Nicole rolled her eyes. What now? The agent cleared his throat. According to our records, the property is owned solely by Ms. Evelyn Carter. The room froze. Nicole laughed nervously. Yes, that's my mom. Yes, he said, but you are not listed as an owner. You do not have legal authority to sell this property. Her face drained of color. That's not possible. I spoke softly. It is. The agent slid the deed across the table. My name. Only my name. Nicole turned to me, anger replacing shock. You did this on purpose. No, I said. I did this to survive. The buyers stood up, confused. The agent apologized. The deal was cancelled. Outside, Nicole exploded. You embarrassed me, she shouted. You ruined everything. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something painful. She didn't see me as her mother anymore. She saw me as an obstacle. I didn't ruin anything, I said. I protected myself. Marcus called later that night. Not to apologize. To threaten. You're selfish, he said. You're sitting on money while your daughter struggles. I hung up. That week, Nicole didn't come home. She didn't call. The silence hurt, but it also gave me clarity. I began to understand that love without boundaries becomes permission for abuse. I went to a lawyer. Not out of fear. Out of wisdom. We reviewed everything. My will. My trust. My future care plans. I made decisions for myself, for once, without guilt. When Nicole finally returned, her tone was different. Softer. Calculated. Mom, let's talk, she said. I listened. But this time, I didn't bend. I love you, I told her. But this house is not your solution. And I am not your backup plan. She cried. Maybe real tears. Maybe not. But I stayed firm. That night, I sat alone in my living room, the same room where I once taught her to walk, and I realized something powerful. Standing your ground doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you start respecting yourself. The house was still mine. My life was still mine. And the next chapter had just begun. Sometimes the hardest lesson isn't learning who your enemies are. It's accepting when the betrayal comes from someone you raised with love. But strength is not about revenge. It's about boundaries. And knowing your worth, even when others forget it. Moral of the story. Love your children deeply, but never give away your dignity, your rights, or your voice. Respect begins where boundaries are protected.